Hello, this is Sebastian from Risolve Studio, and today I'm going to go over what it is we need in order to take your project to print in regards to Riso printing and how to get your files there. So here I've created a sample PDF with illustrations, some vector objects, and some type. And this is really all we need. We need a single PDF with all the different Riso ink colors you plan to use for your print broken out into their own specific spot channels. And to view this, we go to Tools, Print Production, and Output Preview. You can unview the CMYK channels because we're not printing with anything in CMYK. And we can see the 4 different ink colors we plan to use to create this 4-color Riso print. Federal Blue, Kelly Green, Mint, and Yellow. So now moving forward with the video, I'm going to go over how to convert your project into this format using either Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator, or Adobe InDesign. Okay, so to start, I'm going to go over how to convert your artwork or photographs to spot colors inside of Photoshop. This is an example illustration that I've created for the demo. And if we look at the image size, we can see that it's 8.25 by 10.25 inches with a resolution of 600 pixels per inch. The intended finished trim size for this print is going to be 8 by 10. But because Photoshop doesn't allow for setting specific bleed margins, I went ahead and created an 1/8 of an inch all the way around the art for bleed, making it a total of 0.25 for both width and height. The resolution can be between 300 and 600 pixels per inch. Anything higher than this is going to be lost as the presses we use print at 600 dpi. If you open up the channels panel, you can see that I've already gone ahead and created a different spot channel for each of the Riso ink colors I intend to print with. So this image is actually already color separated and broken out into the different specific Riso ink colors. In this case, it's yellow, Kelly green, mint, and black. There are a very large number of ways to accomplish this, and I definitely invite you to explore and experiment with different techniques to get here, but ultimately the end goal is the same. We want the art or the photograph broken out into different spot channels. In this example, I'm going to go over converting the sample illustration that I created into different specific spot channels. The art is currently layer separated, and originally there were a lot more layers in the creation of the artwork that included masks and adjustments and things like that. And then I just sort of merged and consolidated them down into a different layer that would represent each of the different Riso ink colors I want to print with. So in this case, mint, black, Kelly green or green, and yellow. If I just view the green layer and go over into the channels panel, you can see that the art and the color is still existing in a CMYK color space. So if this were to be printed by a laser printer or an inkjet printer that prints in CMYK, this green would be created by the combination of both cyan and yellow. But because we aren't printing in traditional CMYK, this green needs to be brought over into its own spot channel for green. And this is pretty easy to do, and I will show you how to do that. If we go into the channels panel, go to new spot channel, and I'm going to call this Kelly green. And so if you go in here, you can select really any kind of color you want, but you want the closest equivalent to what the Riso ink color is actually going to be. So in this case, I'm selecting Pantone 368 to represent Kelly green in the file. And this is a really close approximation to how Kelly green is going to look printed. For a really comprehensive list of the Pantone, CMYK, and hex equivalents, you can go to stencil.wiki or you can find them on our website. So I'm going to select that, and the name is already there, Kelly green. Okay, and now I've created a spot channel for that Kelly green. So if I go over into the layers, and I select all on that Kelly green layer, copy, and then I just paste it in place on that spot channel. I now need to repeat that same process for each of the remaining 3 ink colors that I want to have on their own spot channel. So I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I've now created a different spot channel for each of the Riso ink colors I plan on using for this print, and I have copy and pasted over the different layers into those corresponding spot channels. If we unview the original CMYK channels, we can see that by just viewing the spot channels, the art is pretty washed out. This tends to happen when we're converting over colors that are in CMYK into the spot channels. And to correct this, it's really easy. You just select those spot channels. We go into Image, Adjustments, and Curves. And you can just correct that right here in the histogram. So you can see up here the different channels are available in this drop-down menu. And we go ahead and just slide that over. And we change the black point. And then I'm going to do yellow. Mint carried over the way I wanted it to, so I don't need to make any corrections to that. And black did as well, so we're okay on both of those. If there's any adjustments or tweaks you want to do, you can do them right here as well in the histogram. So maybe I want to lighten up some of the midtones in the black. You can see it changed in the art a little bit. Same with the Kelly green. And that's looking kind of what I had in mind for the print. If we go back into the channels panel, I now no longer need those original CMYK channels, and we can delete those. And to do that, we go to Image, Mode, and Convert into Multi-Channel. Those spot channels will stay exactly the same, but now we can throw these original CMYK channels in the trash. And there we go. Now the art has been converted into these different spot channels. Now that the artwork's all been color separated into the different spot channels, I'm going to add some trapping. And if I zoom in here to where 2 different colors from 2 different channels come in really close contact with one another, you can see that if there's any slight misregistration in the Riso printing process, which is pretty common and typically happens anyway, you would get some white hairlines that form. And so to help mitigate this, we'll just add some trapping. And you can do this to either 1 or 2 or all the channels at a time. In this case, I'm just going to do all of them. If we go to Image, Trap, you can specify how many pixels, points or millimeters worth of trap you want. I'm just going to do 10 pixels. Click OK. And if it's a complicated file, it might take a little bit longer, but it's running now, and this is going to make it so that some of the yellow or the mint is overprinting on top of one another. And again, this will just help mitigate any slight shifting in registration. Now I'm going to talk about channel options, and this is one of the great features of working out of spot channels. Once the art is fully separated into the different spot channels, I can select a particular channel, in this case Kelly green, and what if I wanted to change Kelly green to a different color entirely? You can go up to the right corner here, go to channel options, and now I can change the color of that ink for that channel. So in this case I'm going to change it to Riso Blue 3005, and then I'm going to just change the name here. And that channel, or that spot channel, is now Riso Blue, or the equivalent of Riso Blue. The areas that you're seeing in the art now that are green are where this blue is layering on top of the yellow from the yellow channel. So if I were to unview the other spot channels and just view the blue channel, the original content that was on this channel from Kelly green never changed. All that changed was the visual representation of color on screen when you have more than one channel being viewed at the same time. You can see now how this blue ink will be interacting with the yellow ink, the mint ink, and the black ink. Now I'm going to go ahead and just change that back to Kelly green while viewing just the blue channel, so you can see that nothing actually changed on that channel originally. It's now Kelly green, and if I view the other channels, we're back to how we had it originally. This is a really helpful way to just sort of experiment and play with different Riso ink color combinations, so you can really dial the print into how you want it to look. In this example, I'm going to show a few different ways that you can convert the sample illustration that I created into different spot channels. This time though, the art has been flattened. There are no more layer separations or channel separations. All the art exists on one layer, and it's currently in a CMYK color space. The first and probably the easiest way to convert this into spot channels is to go into Image, Mode, and go from CMYK color to multi-channel. And what this will do is it will change it from a CMYK color space that would be used for printing, as mentioned before, with like a laser printer or an inkjet printer, into different spot channels. And now that they are in spot channels, we can actually go into the channel options for each one of those spot channels, and we can change the color. So it's currently named cyan, and it's a cyan color. We can change this to a corresponding Riso ink equivalent color. And this is really open to experimentation and just trying different things. The results are pretty variable, and you can get some really interesting color combinations occurring in the art. In this case, I'm going to try Riso Blue, so 3005, and change the channel name to blue. And you can see the art is quite different than what was originally there. And this is just what ends up happening when you're converting true CMYK into the different Riso ink colors. If I revert this art back to what we had originally, you can see that the original color now is quite different than what we had created by converting it into spot channels through that process. Another and sort of useful tool is to go into adjustments, and there's really a number of ways to do this, but in this case let's just go to the channel mixer, and inside of here you can move color around before the conversion occurs and kind of get it how you want it to look, so that when the conversion occurs it's more in line with what you had in mind for the Riso print. So you can see here I changed the greens quite a bit. And so if we go into Image, Mode, and change it from that CMYK color space into multi-channel, which is going to convert those CMYK channels into spot channels, we have more limes kind of occurring in the art. And then again, we can go in here and select a particular channel and channel options and convert that really to anything we want. So this time let me try doing aqua instead of blue. So 637. And I'm going to change the magenta to bright red, which is 185. Okay. So the art's looking a lot more green than it did the last time. It was more of a darker tone, and we can select all these channels and go to adjustments and curves and continue to kind of push and play with different things further to get it kind of how we want to. And again, this is very open to interpretation and experimentation. But here we go. This is a totally different look than the last conversion we did. And this is just by messing around with the channel mixer tool before the conversion, and then just playing around with the different curve adjustments. And again, I'm going to revert this back to the original so you can see the difference. And there you go. In this example, I'm going to go over color separating your flattened artwork or photographs into specific spot channels using more of an automated color separation process, and that's through the use of custom color profiles. We create a few ourselves, and we also use a lot from Color Library, and you can purchase those at colorlibrary.ch. To show them in use, I go to Edit, Convert to Profile, and I can now change the art from that destination space of CMYK into any one of these different custom color profiles. And this will convert that artwork into these different sets of Riso ink colors. So I'll just demo a few to show. So bubblegum, light lime, and purple. red, hunter green, and mint. Blue, red, and yellow. So this is now a 3-color print, and when that profile takes effect, the color shifts a little bit from how you're viewing it in the convert to profile window, but this is a little bit closer to how it's going to look when it gets printed. And if I go into the channels panel, you can see that that art is now color separated into these 3 different spot channels. So red, blue, and yellow. From here I can of course select and do different curve adjustments to fine tune and tweak the art how I want. I can also go into the channel options for a specific channel and change it. So in this case, maybe I want to change blue to federal blue. So 288. And I'll just name that federal blue. And you can see it changed the art quite a bit and made it much darker in certain areas. And that might be the look that you want. So it's definitely worth experimenting with and playing around with. I'm going to show converting a photograph as well. So this is just a photo of an orange, and again, convert to profile. And I can change this to any one of these different Riso ink color combinations. And you can have us do this on our end as well if you want us to apply or use any of these custom color profiles. Green and mint. You can get some really strange results, but some of them are really interesting. Black, bright red, Kelly green. Bright red, teal, and yellow. In this example, I'm going to take a bunch of grayscale separations and convert them into spot channels. This process might be useful if maybe originally you had set up this artwork for screen printing and you want to convert it over into a format for Riso printing. So you can see the different grayscale separations. They're all in their own file. And if I go over here to this sort of blank file I created, you can see I have a different spot channel for each one of the Riso inks I want to use for print. And we just copy and paste these over. The important part of this is that you want to make sure that the image size and the resolution is the same between your grayscale separations and the new file you created where you're going to copy and paste them over. So in here in the file you can see that it's exactly the same and we're ready to go. So we just go to the first grayscale separation, select all, copy, we go in here and paste it in place. And you just repeat that for the remaining grayscale separations. And you can see once you fill more than one channel, you'll start seeing it represented in color. And again, you just continue and copy and paste over the rest. And there it is. So now you have a single file that contains all the different spot colors, and it's all separated out into their own different channels. In summary, there are a lot of different ways that you can convert your artwork or photographs into specific spot channels inside of Photoshop. I've just touched upon a few, and so now I need to go ahead and save this. And to do that, I need to go to File, Save As, and I'm going to save it as a Photoshop DCS 2.0 file. And this is just a type of PostScript file that supports spot colors. And I will save it over one of these existing ones. And once that's been done, you can then take that PostScript file or that DCS 2.0 file and you can place it inside of Illustrator or InDesign for either further layout or to then create your print-ready PDF. Now I'm going to convert a piece of artwork that I've created inside of Illustrator into specific spot colors. So to start, I'm going to go to the Separations Preview panel and select Overprint Preview. And I can see from here all the color that's being used to produce this print. There's already a spot color in here, and that is that vector object with the face on it. And all the other objects in the art are being made up of cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. But I don't want this. I want them to be their own different spot colors that I'm going to be using for the print. So I'm going to unselect Overprint Preview. And to start, I'm going to convert these 4 blue objects around the art. And if your artboard contains a lot of objects of the same color that you're trying to change at the same time, you can do this by selecting one of them, and you go to Select, Same, and you can select all the different objects on the artboard by fill and stroke, fill color, shape, these different things. In this case, I'm going to do fill color. And now I've just selected all 4 of those circles at the same time, and I'm going to change them to a spot color. So if I go to the swatches panel, you can see I already have this spot swatch in here, and you can tell it's a spot swatch by this little white corner here in the swatch, and by clicking that, they are all now this one spot color, which is going to be Federal Blue. And I can see that in the Overprint Preview now. If I unview Federal Blue in the print, the circles go away as well. So I'm going to unclick that. And now I'm going to change this yellow, these green, and this sort of minty colored object into different specific spot colors. So if I go to swatches, I need to pull up the different spot swatches to choose from. So I go to the left here to the color books, and I'm going to choose Pantone Solid Uncoated, as this is where the different spot colors are going to be that I'm going to use for the different Riso inks. So I'm going to select these 2 green objects, and I'm going to make them the equivalent of what will be Kelly green, so 368. And they are now that spot color. I'm going to do the same for the mint. And that is now on the mint spot color. I go back to Separation Preview and do Overprint Preview and unview CMYK. You can see that I forgot to change the yellow, so I need to go ahead and change that real quick. So if I view it now and unview CMYK, you see that the art is all still there, and now it's all on these different spot channels. But as far as the effects go, I don't want this face to knock out the objects behind it, so I need to change those. And so to do that, I'm going to select all those objects, and you can go into transparency and change it from normal to multiply. Now it's going to overprint on top of one another. So if I go back to Separation Preview, you can see if I remove the Federal Blue, the area of ink behind it isn't going to be knocked out when we do the print. And same with the other colors as well. They're all going to overprint on top of one another. If you want it to knock out, that's fine too, and you can leave it as is, but by viewing it in the Overprint Preview in the Separations Preview panel, you can make sure that the art is going to be printed the way that you had intended, whether it's going to overprint on top of each other or it's going to knock out. I've decided that I don't want to have the Federal Blue here overprinting on top of the color behind it. I want the color behind it knocked out, so I'm going to change that back to normal. And if I go to the Separations Preview, you can see that's knocking out. The problem with this when we print is that there is no trapping happening here on the art. So any shift in registration will definitely show lots of little white hairlines between all these different colors that are being printed right next to one another. And adding trapping in Illustrator is a little bit more difficult, and the automated trapping that does exist in Illustrator isn't very good. So if you need or want trapping added, we can do this on our end using a sort of powerful plugin called Esco Power Trapper. And this allows us to set any kind of specific trap that we want. And it takes a second. But if I zoom in here now, you can see that the yellow and the Kelly green has been expanded into the federal blue. So this will help mitigate any of those white hairlines that'll show when it prints. If you want us to add this trapping to your vector type art from Illustrator, just make sure that you save the PDF out of Illustrator, preserving editing capability, and you've outlined your type so that we don't have any font issues. And just really quick, when this trapping gets generated, it gets generated onto its own layer. So it doesn't change any of the original artwork that was created, but all the color that's in this trap layer now is spot color. And so if we view in the separations preview, they will all be exported together onto the different spot channels that we're going to be using for print. Now that I've finished converting this artwork into the different spot colors I plan on using for print, I need to save it. And to do that, I just go to Save As. And I'm going to save it as a PDF. Illustrator will allow me to do this, and it preserves the spot colors inside of the art. Inside of the Save PDF dialog box, just make sure that the Preserve Illustrator editing capabilities is turned on. This way we can add trapping to the art if you want us to. And now that I've finished saving the file, this PDF can act as both a print-ready PDF for us, or you can then place it inside of InDesign for any further layout or design you might want to do. Now that I've completed the art inside of Photoshop and these different vector objects inside of Illustrator, I've placed them here inside of InDesign for any further design and layout that I'd want to do. If I go to Document Setup, you can see that the finished trim size is going to be 8 by 10, and that I've added 1/8 of an inch of bleed all the way around. The artwork that I placed in here is full bleed, and it carries over into this bleed margin area here, and that'll just get trimmed off when I trim the prints down. So I need to make sure that all the spot colors that are used inside of this artwork are existing on the same spot channel that I want them to, and that the color is being layered the way I want it to as well in the art when it gets printed. And to do this, I'm going to view it in Separations Preview, and I turn on Separations. And you can see here that if I view and then unview CMYK, nothing here is in CMYK, and that's how I want it. But you can see that there's a lot of spot channels here, and some of these are the same, and I don't want that. I want them to be grouped onto the same channel. So you see I have a mint here, and I have a mint here as well. So to fix this, I go to the top right here, and I go to Ink Manager. And inside of here, I can alias these different spot colors together. And how I do that is I just select the one that I want to alias, and I go over here, and I'm going to alias that into mint. I'll alias this Pantone 288 into Federal Blue. And I also really only want this to be a 4-color print. So I'm going to go ahead and turn black into Federal Blue, and I'll alias that to Federal Blue. And so now there's really only 4 spot colors being used here. And if I click OK, you can see that that Federal Blue, or I'm sorry, that black that was in the art shifted over into Federal Blue. And now this print is only 4 colors. It's yellow, Kelly green, mint, and Federal Blue. Now when checking the different layering of these different spot colors, I can see that the Federal Blue is knocking out the mint behind it. In some cases you might want that, but in this case I don't want it to do that, because any fine type like this, knocking out of the background is going to show any little white hairlines and stuff when any misregistration occurs. So to fix this, all I need to do is select those different objects and type, and I go into Effects, and I change that to Multiply. And now that Federal Blue is going to overprint onto the mint, and to see that, if I go back into the separations preview and I unview Federal Blue, you can see that the mint behind it isn't being knocked out, and that's exactly how I want it to be. So all the different spot colors have been grouped together the way I want them to, and I have the ink layering on top of one another the way I want it to as well. So I need to save this, and to do that I go to File, Export, and I'm going to save it over this PDF here, and I'm just going to save it as a PDF. And so inside of the Export PDF dialog box, there's quite a number of different settings. I have my own presets that I've created, and you can download and install these from our website. But the main thing here is that you want to export your document as pages, not spreads, and this is applied to books as well. In the compression, I just want to make sure that I have 600 set, and it's a zip compression. So this way anything over 600 pixels per inch will just get downsampled to 600 pixels per inch, which is what I want. Don't include any marks, trim marks, bleed marks, any of that. We do this on our end, but do include the document bleed settings. And then for the output, just make sure that you're not using any color conversions or including any policies regarding profiles. And then export. And here it is. This is the print ready PDF that I created. Again, if I view it in print production and output preview, I can just sort of check and make sure that these different Riso ink colors are going to layer on top of one another the way I want them to. And it all looks good and how I want. If you scroll over any given area inside of this print, you can see these percentages change next to the different spot colors. And that's telling you how much ink is going to be applied to a given area. And so for example, if I select here, you can see that I have 75% Federal Blue, 24% Kelly Green, and 31% yellow for a total amount of ink of about 134. So typically you want to try to avoid large areas that are in excess of about 240 to 260% ink. So this is also just sort of a helpful tool in making sure that you're not using too much ink to produce the print. The paper can really only saturate and absorb so much, so any extra will cause distortion and maybe not the result that you want, and it'll make it so that the print is more prone to smudging and stuff. And that's it. This is a print ready PDF, and it's ready to give to us, and we can get this printed.